Good morning, Pastor Ron Jetter, Immanuel Lutheran Church, Grandview, Washington, on Saturday, the 18th of July. Some of you commented that I have a pretty short haircut. It is difficult to know what to do with hair when you've got crop failure over a couple of different spots, and I don't mind it having this short because in these warm days of July, it's nice. Even if I have to go outside for a while, I will wear a hat, but still, it's a lot cooler not having a lot of thick hair, which it's still quite thick on the sides when it does grow out, and it will grow out over 6 weeks so that by the time my daughter's wedding comes along, which will be an outdoor wedding, it'll look fine. And I don't spend a lot of time getting it looking good because I could run a comb or a brush through it right now and it will still look exactly the same. Maybe a few weeks from now, we'll see. It's going to be 100 next week, so I'm just fine with it. For those of you who have longer hair and take the time to make it look good, good for you. So these are the days, though, these hot days, I don't mind having less to work with. But let's go back to what I've been working with in the Bible. The book of Genesis has stories that are meant to explain the presence of certain aspects of our lives. And as we looked at the presence of sin, the presence of hatred, prejudice, murderous rage, the ability to lie, hold grudges, to blame, all of that's within those first few chapters. Now we move on to sometime later, and we get this 5th chapter where there is a long mentioning of all of the generations, the many generations. And we've got, for instance, 525. Methuselah had lived 187 years, and then he became the father of Lamech. Methuselah lived after the birth of Lamech 782 years. He lived that long after. So how long did he live? 782 plus 187, that's 900 and some odd years. So Methuselah, the longest living person. Well, I don't know. They guess they didn't have a lot of cholesterol in their diet. No, we don't know. We don't know if this is anecdotal. We just don't know. But verse 32, the last verse of this chapter, sets up the next set of stories. After Noah was 500 years old, Noah became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japhet. Japhet is spelled J-A-P-H-E-T. It looks like Japheth, but it's pronounced Japhet. Now we've got to go to chapter 6, and you know the story. I don't have to go through this because it's been made into plays and movies. There's a modern one about Evan, the TV reporter, who then is called to become a congressperson and then ends up being told by God to build an ark, and it's pretty cute. It's not a bad movie and good for the whole family to watch too. But here we are in chapter 6. When people began to multiply on the face of the ground and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all that they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. So, after all those long-lived people like Methuselah and Lamech and all them and Noah, God said, all right, that's it, 120. That's as if to say, somehow, even in the writing of this, the longest living person that anyone knew of was 120. And there wasn't anybody else. Well, why? There's stories of people living longer. Well, God had said, that's enough. That's all they get. I'm tired of them. They're multiplying too fast. And because they're multiplying too fast, well, they were probably using up all the resources that they needed for one thing. And so populations tend to be able to grow to the resources. Native American tribes grew to a certain size, and that was as far as they could grow because they generally didn't till the land and plan for the future. They didn't store up a lot. They would eat season to season. They would store up enough for a winter, and then the next year they counted on new things to eat, a new hunt, new foods from the ground. And as the food supply diminished or grew according to nature and the weather, so did the size of the tribe. But it never could grow because they didn't then have a long-term agrarian understanding. A lot of the tribes would use the resources in an area and then move on to a new area and not come back to that area, maybe in the lifetime of the people who had been young at the time, because nature had to take time to clean it all up. They would trash it, and then they would move on. That's how they were. And then when white settlers came from Europe, brought new techniques of tilling the land and of storing. Well, these techniques go clear back to the Middle East, thousands of years before. The Africans, the Middle Easterners, the Arabs, they all understood how to do two things. Number one, till the land. As we learned, Cain was a tiller of the land. And his brother Abel was a keeper of flocks. So those are the two things. How to maintain herds and flocks for the purpose of feeding people, and how to then till the land and store up grain, some of it to be used for seed, some of it to be used for food. But there was too many people. Now, verse 4, this is interesting. Chapter 6, verse 4 of Genesis. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of humans who bore children to them. These were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. Nephilim. We really don't know, because it's the only mention of that. It almost sounds like these angelic type warriors that in the Greek mythology they were half human and half God, the product of a father who was a god and an earthly mother then. And so we get a lot of these same stories, but this is the only reference we get. The heroes of old. Who were these heroes of old? We're only in chapter 6 of Genesis, the first book, and there are no stories that tell us any more than this. One of these very cryptic stories. And it's amazing how a clever writer will take this story and expand it into these wonderful works of fiction. And some of them claim that they're not fiction, that they understand, they have discovered the hidden books of the Bible. Well, they haven't. They've just taken a verse and blown it out of proportion. Verse 5, the Lord saw that the wickedness of humankind was great in the earth, that every inclination of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made humankind on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. The Lord said, I will blot out from the earth the humans I have created, people together with animals and creeping things and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I made them. But Noah found favor in the sight of the Lord. Okay, God was disgusted with everybody. Everybody's sinful and wicked except for, well, Noah's not a bad guy. Okay, and we already know Noah has 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Then it says so again in verse 9. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So it's important enough. They mentioned that twice. They want us to know these names. So as we know the story, then Noah was married, and Shem, Ham, and Japheth were married, and they had this expanded family. God told Noah, make the ark, and told him the size of it. And then everybody misses this point, though. Or not everybody, I shouldn't use an absolute, but a lot of people miss this point. How many animals did Noah take into the ark? Well, let's go to verse 19. Of every living thing, of all flesh, you shall bring 2 of every kind into the ark to keep them alive with you, and they shall be male and female. Of the birds according to their kind, of the animals according to their kind, every creeping thing on the ground of its kind, 2 of every kind you shall keep alive. Well, all right, but it also says, of the things that you eat, you will bring 7 pair. Not 1 pair. So a pair of each as a breeding pair to make sure that species survives. But of the things that are your herd animals that you'll depend on for food, you will need 7 pair. Also take with you every kind of food that is eaten. Wow. So that's one of the things that we forget about the ark, is that they took with them 7 pair of all of their flocks and herds, including the birds and things that they would eat. Not just 2. So someone says, how many pairs of animals did Noah take on the ark? You can say, the ones they ate or the ones they didn't? And then they'll go, what? What do you mean? Well, go look in chapter 7 of the book of Genesis. See you tomorrow, 10 a.m. worship on Zoom.